Welcome to the Honest Property Podcast with your hosts, Becky and Ruth. And we love talking all things property and business and entrepreneurship generally. And on today's podcast, we have our lovely guests, Sam and Alex, who are a couple venturing into property. And we're going to discuss about their journey and how they work together as a couple, because that, I am sure, comes with its own unique challenges. Because we work as sisters, so navigating the property world as a couple is a completely different kettle of fish. Say that. Right. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves and let us know how did your property investing journey even begin, and why did you want to start?
Good question. So I'm Sam.
Yeah, I'm Alex. That's normally the first question that we get is who's who.
You both have gender neutral names. I love it.
Yeah, and everyone always thinks that I'm Alex and this is Sam, but no, just to clarify. So we formed SOProperties about a year ago after looking at multiple different property strategies for the last 2 years.
Do you mind if I ask why SOProperties?
A lot of people ask us this. So it's to try and put both our initials into it. So Sam is the S, and then Alex's surname is Osborne.
Right.
So it's SOProperties, and then eventually one day it'll just be my initials, right?
Yeah, no pressure.
Let's start somewhere.
So we started about a year ago, and then this year has just been growing strength to strength, building out our HMO portfolio down in the South Coast.
That's amazing, because personally, we've seen your social media as well on Instagram. We've only seen you on Instagram, but how amazing the quality, and just watching your journey is just so great to watch. And we actually met Sam and Alex at Sophie Foot's property networking event first, and you were completing on your HMO that day.
That feels like a lifetime ago now, doesn't it? And it wasn't that long. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, that was in the summer, right? So we collected our keys that day, which was really exciting for our first property. And then since then, we've actually completed on another 2 properties in the last couple of months.
Congrats, guys. That was really
Thank you. It was quick. It was a bit quicker. The budget sped things up a little bit. Both sellers were keen to get rid before the budget. So, we had to...
So you took advantage.
We had to sprint it a little
bit. And you were able...
Yeah, in hindsight, it was a great thing. I think we ended up saving quite a bit of money on the stamp duty. Everyone was worried about capital gains tax. No one was really thinking about stamp duty. But yeah, in the end, it worked out pretty well.
So you've got 3 HMOs under your belt already?
Yes. So we've got 3 HMOs, 3 houses, one that is about to complete back brick renovation in the next 3 weeks. And then the other 2, we will start back brick renovations in February. Yeah. By summer next year, we'll have 3 fully up and running HMOs, and hopefully project 4 and 5 in the pipeline.
That's amazing. So how were you able to acquire, it felt like within a year, 3 properties?
It's been a busy year.
Yeah, I think the first one we saved up from our corporate jobs, and we managed to do a good proportion of that, or pretty much most of that, with our own money. The second one, we got investor finance, which was really good and a different experience kind of going through that process as well. And then the third one, we used bridge lending, which is a whole experience in itself. So we've managed to kind of do all 3 different routes in the 3 different properties we've got.
Wow. So you were really creative with finding the finance from lots of different places. What is your preferred? Is there a preferred way of going about it? Yeah.
I think ultimately preferred, obviously, cash is king in this game. It allows you to move faster, be more dynamic with offers that you're making and when you're working with builders. So our big focus going into 2025 is going to be on building out the investors that we're working with and making sure that we're kind of bringing on new investors in line with new projects. Obviously, I would love to say our own cash funds, but unless I win the lottery, I don't think that's going to happen for a little while.
Yeah, I think cash is definitely the bit. It just takes a lot of the red tape away. I think that's the biggest thing, and builders prefer it, obviously, because they're not waiting to get paid and having to have asset managers come out and review all the work. And so it just speeds things up.
That's a really good tip. And is there a reason why? Is that the reason why you're focusing on HMOs? Because
Yeah, I think when we had a bit of paralysis at the beginning, and we'd done one of those education courses, and we got opened up to the world of property, and then there was SAs, and then there was flips, and then there was HMOs, and then there was so much stuff, and we were, our heads were spinning for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we eventually kind of decided that we just needed to pick one. And we had the luxury of speaking to a lot of really lovely, friendly people who talked us through what they were doing, why they were doing it. Some people kind of warned us off different strategies depending on our circumstances. I think we picked the one that was right for us at the time. Like, we still got full-time jobs. HMOs are less intensive than, say, like a service accommodation on a day-to-day basis, right? So that was a big part of it as well, something that fits for us now, and then something that I think we balanced up, like long-term capital appreciation and cash flow.
Yeah.
And that kind of came out the winner.
Yeah, as we started with HMOs when we started years ago, was HMOs because we wanted that higher cash flow whilst we were working our business. So that, HMOs are great for being able to have that, and you're not just relying on just the compounding.
Yeah. And we kind of went down that route of, do we want to just focus on cash flow? And ultimately in the first 5 years, that really is kind of a big focus for us. The really great thing with doing these kind of back to brick renovations is that ultimately capital appreciation will naturally be growing within these properties. So longer term, it's the right strategy.
So how did you decide I want to go into property? I love finding out why people origin story. Yeah, because you could have done just focus on stocks and shares, or like crypto, but like, why property?
Alex and I have been together for a little while now. We've been together 5 years, and I had my own kind of buy-to-let in kind of our little town that we live in, and they were okay, but the return on investment was just terrible. It was around 3% a year, which just was awful. And Alex just kept going on at me about, Sam, we need to understand more about property and how we kind of build third income through property investment. And eventually I kind of gave in and said, okay, let's go to an event. Let's go and find out some more. Let's hear out what other people are doing. And then after that, I think it was me that just kind of went, right, come on, let's just get on with it. And let's just go straight into HMOs. This is the route.
It was circumstance at the beginning. We were the typical retail landlord. Like, it was just circumstances. Like, we moved in. Oh, I moved into Sam's flat. We then bought a flat together.
So accidental landlords.
Yeah, and that's how it really started, wasn't it? Way back when, and we couldn't really figure out why we were not making the money that we probably should have been making.
Yeah.
And obviously, it was probably the worst. One of the worst things to do is a leasehold flat. Loads of maintenance, loads of service charges. So we couldn't really work it out. And then when I was younger, my family have done a couple of different projects, whether it was flips or buy-to-lets or the things like that. So I've been around property a little bit. Most millionaires, become millionaires through property. So it seemed like the most achievable route. And I don't know enough about investing in stocks and shares really and there's ups and downs when it comes to stocks and shares and things like that, whereas property consistently over the long term goes up. So yeah, I think it was the bricks and mortar and actually being able to have a physical asset as well was something that appealed to us.
That's amazing. So you had you were basically already doing it. You're just a lot more conscious, having a more proactive, conscious approach to how you maximize getting another strong stream of.
Yeah, and the jobs we do as well. We're in sales. And that's the most active income you could ever get. So, if as soon as you stop selling, if you have a bad period, the money stops. So we wanted something that was a bit more continuous, a bit more passive and consistent.
Yeah. A recurring stream of income. And I think the nice thing about HMOs, and this is what attracted us to it in the first place when we began, was that if, say it was an entire buy-to-let, if that tenancy ended and you had a void, the entire property is completely void. Whereas if you have an HMO, say you're doing, maybe this would only work in the case of doing individual room letting. I don't know if that's what you're doing, but the pro of having an HMO is if one tenant leaves, then the rest of the rooms are still occupied and you're still getting rental income to cover you for that property, even if one person's left. Are you doing individual room lets, or are you doing 1A?
So we're going to do individual room.
Yeah.
So the first one that'll be up and running in the next couple of weeks will be 8 rooms for individually let out. And that's kind of the route we wanted to go down to spread that risk, as you mentioned, to make sure that we've always got the ability to kind of let out those different rooms at different periods of time throughout the year.
What sort of tenants are you going to target for for the properties?
Professionals, at least for a good proportion of the next couple of years, like back to big refurbs. I think the first one we probably went a little bit extra on the refurb job. So yeah, we've gone like high end. So we want professionals in there, and then in 5, 10, however many years time, when the properties get a little bit more tired, maybe we'll kind of reevaluate. The reason why we chose what we chose is that there's a good set of markets for different tenant demographics. So if we ever did need to pivot, we've got that in the back pocket. We've got a university we're in like prime student location as well. So if we ever wanted to switch that in the future, we can.
That's really good. So you identify properties and locations where you could switch up the type of tenant that you can have in them, and that helps really reduce the risk of having a vacant property if you know you can have a variety of people living in it and suit their lifestyle. We did that actually. We did that. Ours is located near a hospital, but it's also near a university. So we're like, okay, well then people who work just live in there, or students.
Yeah.
We've had a real mix.
Which tenants did you find were best suited?
Professional, I would say.
Yeah.
Students can be, like, no offense students, but they are notoriously messy.
I think when it's their first time ever living independently, like it's such a learning curve. So there has been occasions where we felt a little bit like their mummy. Yeah, I think we talked about it in a previous episode. There was one girl and she was like calling us, being like, "There's a spider in my room."
Oh wow!
Yeah, she was like, "Get it out." I was like, "This is not an emergency."
You would hate that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. It was amazing. Like the third property we bought, the students were living in there a couple of months beforehand, and I have no idea how they were living in it.
It was terrible.
Like, yeah, I mean,
There's more wear and
it's
tear.
just and like the carpet was 30, 40 years old. Like the place was, it looked like a relic.
Like the walls were green. It was horrid. Yeah, Alex loved it.
Oh yeah, I loved it. I walked in, I was like, oh yeah, this is the one.
See, that's the irony. Like property investors that you might see generally in the media, you just tend to see the finished product. But a real goal, like the best opportunities generally, most investors will know, is the ones that are notoriously kind of smelly. And you can see that you've got lots of areas where you can really make that property look and feel so much better. But that doesn't mean that usually it has a funky smell.
Yeah, you definitely got to get your hands dirty. But that's, to your point, that's where you add value, right? That's the whole point about being a property investor, is that the BRR bit, that's where you make a significant amount of money relative to anything else. It's actually just putting value back on that property.
Yeah. Are you going to be self-managing the properties?
Yes, at the beginning, yes.
Start with, and then you'll see.
Yes.
You're brave.
Yeah. This whole passive income thing that Alex sold me on
is not.
Yeah.
So,
we worked out.
just going to say that, we managed for years before we leveraged off management, and we're actually going back to it because we found when we first started, there weren't systems that we could use, softwares we could use, and so we did all of it ourselves.
But it was very much, they just had our WhatsApp or our email address, or we had a spreadsheet. But now, that was 10 years ago. Now there are softwares,
so it's so much easier to manage.
You could definitely do it and like establish. I think that's probably like a top tip that we're trying to implement now that we're venturing back to managing ourselves, is making sure you've got your boundaries in place, and definitely don't use your own phone number.
Yeah.
Like that was a big error, that mistake that we made. We were rushing out on Christmas Day, putting heaters like
when the boiler went down,
and it's just not what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
So just like have your processes in place.
Yeah, but then you do really learn the most when you are in it. You're in it. You're in the thick of it, and then you really know how to look after your tenants and having that sort of relationship. We used to get Christmas presents from our tenants, and that was a female touch there.
Before that lady moved in, it was like not
pretty.
He was really sweet. He gave me a bottle of Polish vodka, and it was actually delicious. It was like apple pie vodka.
Yeah. You've got really good, especially if you're doing room let and you have that sort of connection with your tenants, they're a lot likely to stay longer than outsourcing straight away to a management company. And sometimes it can be really hard to even find a really good management company that will look after your tenants as well as you would, because
you know how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
where our focus is very much on cash flow as well. Obviously, a management company is great, but that is also 10% of your cash flow every month. And when you've kind of only got 1 or 2 HMOs, that's quite a chunk. So I think for us, we'll initially start, we'll give it a go. We'll see how it goes.
It is a good learning opportunity. I think you want to know all the the good and the bad.
Yeah.
So that you know, like when an agent, if you do pass it on to an agent or a management company, that they're doing it properly.
Yeah.
And you also maybe a little bit of sympathy as well. That it's not the easiest thing to do. So, yeah. And to your point, I think we worked it out, and it was when we got the 3 HMO running, it's going to be 20 grand a year.
Yeah.
Right. And 20 grand a year when you're continuing trying to build that portfolio and recycle that cash, like that's a lot of money to go out of business.
Gosh, I think that was one of the things we sat down and we're like, we're paying how much?
Yeah, but I mean, being able to negotiate a good deal because we get.
Yeah, the more you have, actually, you can reduce the.
You can negotiate a percentage, but yeah, we were like, actually,
even with the negotiated percentage, we were like,
yeah, but like we're so lucky in now that we do have these softwares that make it so much easier for landlords now to be able to do it themselves. So I am really grateful. Thank you, technology.
And actually, just like technology funked up this podcast a little bit, like openly at the beginning, but when it works, it really is helpful.
Yes, absolutely. Like without technology, I don't think we'd be where we are today, this year, just from like even just Instagram as a piece of technology to like meet people like yourselves and stuff. Like it is game changing.
And what I love about what you guys have done is that we've stayed quiet for so long. And when we first started, because it was in the media, everyone hates landlords. We're like, hush, hush, didn't tell anyone our business. But you have openly, from the beginning, have been so open on social media. And that's something we wish that we would have done a long time ago, because you're, like you said, you're building relationships with other people. A lot easier to be able to find investors that can invest into your project
if they know what you're doing.
So we've kind of done it going into it going, do you know what, let's just be really open. We never pretend to be something we're not. Like we're 3 HMOs in, but we've been able to document our whole story. So we'll look back on this in 2, 3, 4 years time at the start of our Instagram page and go, oh my God, remember when we used to do videos?
I think that would be nice.
And look at that property that we first ever bought. And I think it's really great memories as well as being able to grow our own kind of connection.
And you've done it journal. Yeah, you've done it in good quality as well. We can't even open some of our files because they're so old.
Like that is so true. Like I wish we had more to look back on, just to reflect and appreciate how far we've come. So I'm really, really glad that you guys are already doing that. And it looks so good. Like you should check out their Instagram. It's really good quality.
That was by far the most uncomfortable part of the property stuff so far, has been that Instagram page. Like that for me was such a jump into the unknown. I didn't have Instagram before we started this, so it was a complete like unknown world that I'm slowly getting used to.
Learning all sorts of skills.
Yeah, it's I genuinely think like we've learned so much outside of the property stuff. To your point, like systems and process and accounts and like managing different stakeholders. Like people underestimate how much time and energy and effort goes into like a build or just managing a property or what that looks like. There's so many people involved in your project managing all of that. Like it builds up a new set of skill sets. I think we've learned, or I've certainly learned a ton.
Yeah. I must admit, like my Instagram focus has been, I think in property, we're so quick to say, oh, it's been 6 months and we haven't done anything, or it's been 6 months and we've only got 1 property. But actually being able to look back on the build and where it was 6 months ago versus now, like I was really putting myself down, wasn't I, throughout this year, going, we've not moved fast enough. We're not where other people are at this point. Actually using that as a documentary of what we've done and where we've come has been so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And also people on social media, I mean, this was a big reason why we started on this Property Sisters, because on social media, you're always only seeing the highlights. And a lot of the time, people are just posting old properties from which they did years ago, and they're just like reposting it. It's not like property, the best.
Or like people who are like, oh, I got like 1 million properties in a year. And it's like, no, you did not.
Impossible. It is slow growth, but that's the best. It's the most sustainable if you do it right from the beginning in that way. It just Yeah, but it's a whole rant in itself.
Yeah, no, we want it to be completely authentic and not, like pulling up in a Lamborghini outside of a house that like, you don't even own, saying like, "Oh, look at me, like I'm in property," and they might have one rent to service accommodation, or like that they've just started and they've gone,
Is it?
look at us, So we were super conscious that we didn't want to even go anywhere near that route, and you can tell, you could tell pretty quickly like who's doing that and who's not.
So when it comes to working together, do you delegate tasks to each other? How does that work? How do you guys support?
I get delegated to.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think so we work together in our corporate lives as well as in property and at home.
Oh, you spend a
And it's
time together.
a lot of time.
So do you guys, is this a business that you have together, or you work for a company and you're both working for the company?
So we work for a company together, which is where we met, which is where we do technology sales. And then we've obviously started our own property company. So we work together there, and then at home and our social lives. But no, I wouldn't change it. We are together 24/7, but it works for us. A lot of people say, how on earth can you spend so much time together?
That's all we've ever known, really.
Well, we know, yeah. It's like, we wouldn't have it any other way now.
Do you
I mean, I say
find
that.
when you're not working, are you able to
Switch off
and have conversations that are outside of work?
That's a hard.
Yeah, that's something we've been working on this year, because it's just so much. And especially with the property business, you can't control when people come back to you as well. Like we said, we've obviously spoke about Instagram quite a lot, but if we post something on Instagram and suddenly we get potential investors messaging us on a Sunday night,
It's kind of high.
you automatically, yeah. And then you kind of lose that boundary of saying, right, weekends are for us to have a social life.
Drops you a message and goes, "Oh, by the way, this has happened." You're like, I've got to jump on that pretty quick.
Yeah. So we're still working out how to split time effectively.
But to answer your question, I think we've got really clear roles, and the bit we do stuff together and we know what each other are doing. But yeah, I definitely think that we've got clear roles. Sam is by far like the engine of the business. Like, I've never met anyone more operationally efficient. Like, when something lands in that inbox, it's gone in like 30 minutes. And so we're never the hold up. And then when it comes to things like the build and planning and stuff like that, like I can nerd out at that stuff for quite a while. So that's my remit. But yeah, you definitely kind of keep the lights on, don't you? Keep everything moving.
Yeah. And I think that's the best way to do it. I've got my set roles. Alex has his set roles. We try and avoid duplicating of efforts as much as we can. But then we'll always be like each other's last check before something goes out.
Yeah, that makes a good team. And I always say, like, just when you're in a partnership, it is actually the quickest way to build your wealth, because you're sharing the same pot.
That's it. Like, we both have the same goal. We both got kind of that same 5-year plan. Pot of money just builds because both of you are contributing to it. So yeah, no, it's worked for us. It's been great this year.
And like you guys will know this as well, that it's when you do it together, it is so much easier. Like, I would not be able to have done this anywhere near at the speed like by myself. It's just when you have one person has like a slightly slower day, and then another, like the other person picks you up,
100%.
and you lean on them, and it's a bit of it really does help keep you motivated. It's like a gym buddy, right? Same sort of
Like
concept.
accountability or sharing the decision-making process, which, if you're not sure about something, then, and you have someone else to help come to a decision faster, that saves a lot of time. The fact we've got two pairs of hands, it's two brains. There are people who do it by themselves, and that's so much pressure to have to make the final decision on your own always. But when you're in a partnership, it does make it easier to feel better about the final decision that you make within. You're more confident with the decision you've made when you make it. Yeah.
That's that is so important for us, because where we are learning so much at the moment, you do just need that second sanity check on things before you go and commit to buying a house, or before you commit to using a builder that maybe is more expensive than normal. So yeah, it's super important.
Yeah. So what would be your top tips for other couples working together? Like, from your experience, if there was a couple out there looking to start investing together, what would be your top advice?
I think it's super cliche, but like, communication is a big piece and almost over communication, especially at the beginning. Like, property is normally a really high stakes environment, right? We're not talking about insignificant amount of money. So I think it's just about being overly communicative and making sure that both are happy with whatever the steps or whatever the decisions are. Like, you can't have one person that's like all gun ho and the other person like really unsure, really, not wanting to do it. You both got to kind of agree. And then I think a big thing is like not pointing fingers afterwards. Like, you both made a decision, like you're both in it. That'd be my one.
Yeah, I'd probably say I completely agree with that. But then also, like, you have to give certain things in the first year. So I love travel and I work to go on holidays. But this year, where we've obviously started the business and a lot of our cash and money has gone towards growing the property business, it has meant that we've had to put certain things aside. And I think if we wasn't both on the same wavelength and on the same page of where we want to be, that would be really hard. So I think make sure you level with each other of, okay, what does the next 2 years, 3 years look like if we go down this route? And what are some of the things that we're going to have to potentially give up for a short period of time? You can't live the same lifestyle you was when you weren't building a portfolio of properties. So I think that's important.
You're time poor, aren't you? Like, that's the reality, is that at the beginning you're time poor, you're flying everywhere, trying to learn loads of stuff, trying to meet people, trying to get involved, especially when you're new to it. Like, it's much harder when you're new because you're second guessing yourself. You don't have the reputation or the experience. You have to prove to everyone what you're about and what you're doing. So yeah, I think being time poor, that's just the factor of anyone starting up a
new
business.
A new business. I mean, we can relate to that because when we first started, we were starting our passion business at the same time as investing. And it's so easy to see your friends when you're like in your 20s and they are like, they're climbing up the corporate ladder, and we chose a different path, and it can feel very disheartening when you feel like you're not getting those rewards yet. But knowing that it is delayed gratification, like, it really, I look back now and I go, I'm so grateful that we prioritized the investing and focusing on our business but when you're young, it can be really easy to compare yourself to other people and like seeing them with like climbing their own individual ladder. Do you feel like with your because you share your social circles, do you feel like you've had to justify yourself with your friends and family to say why you can't do certain things, or do they get it?
I was amazed. So my grandparents are like a big reason why, like, I just wanted to do well in life generally, just to make them proud. And I was quite concerned that telling them that this is what we're going to do, and they were beyond supportive, which I was pretty surprised at. So that was lovely.
Family support.
Yeah, that was really nice. And then your parents were great as well.
Yeah, I think all our family have been amazing with it. I think what we found is like our friendship circles, pretty much all of them have been, I think at the start they were like, oh, another one of these get rich quick schemes that Sam and Alex are talking about, But actually, over the year, they've seen social media grow and they've seen the properties and they've come down and done viewings with us and stuff like that. And everyone has been amazing with it. The reality is that we can't go out as much as we used to, but people have understood that. And I think people's lives are naturally changing as we're getting older anyway. But it has been amazing how good everyone's been.
Yeah, the vast majority has been a super positive experience, and it's nice to get their support.
That's
I think you have to explain it quite a bit. I don't think it's not out of people not being supportive, but I think a lot of people just don't get it at the beginning. It's kind of repetition, and the more you repeat it and the more you kind of showcase stuff to them,
I think that's
some people turn around pretty quick and other people take a little bit more time.
Yeah, but because you've already got an Instagram, everyone's got an online account. They're probably just by observing you guys, they can see it. You don't need to explain yourself. Like when we started, we didn't put it. Instagram didn't exist. So sometimes it felt like we would have friends who were like, why can't you do this at this time? Or why don't you have, or why you can't think forward something at a certain time? Well, yeah, to do something. So that's why we're very grateful for social media now, because you don't need to explain so much anymore because your peers can see that you are busy and you're working on your future. And now that, I guess, like, you know, when you're in your 20s, it's all about going out and
yeah, I can't even hack a night out anymore, let alone going out more than once. But I also think like our friendship groups have also changed since we started to like going to events and things like that. Yeah, no one does talk about it because actually now we've got like a different group of friends that we actually see and we talk to pretty much only about property because we're all in the same world. And actually groups do change, just tap into a whole new circle of people.
Yeah. So, community is so important. I think Ruth and I, we lacked that quite a lot at the beginning. And
Because
you
we were
are
just
miles
there.
ahead already just by putting yourself out there and being connected to the people that are going to lift you up and understand and brainstorm.
Well, you don't have to feel ashamed to talk about money as well or investing.
Yeah.
Whereas then we just didn't have that. We kept very hush hush because of judgment or just for the few people that we trust. But it's so, I think, can't even highlight enough how important it is to surround yourself with other people who are doing similar.
Doesn't even have to be property now.
Yeah, it's like
just they have a business or they have clear goals for themselves, and you just need that.
and they want to talk.
Uplifting energy,
They want to talk about their plans in the future when it comes to bettering themselves instead of, you know, there's no disrespect to people who don't want to do that, but it's also limiting your time with those kind of people because that will bring you down or not allow you to be able to better yourself too.
Yeah. I keep saying to Alex, I know like there's energy givers and energy suckers at the moment. For us.
Vampires, energy vampires.
And like, yeah, and you spend a few hours with some people, and if I even dared talk about money, they're like,
that's really distasteful.
Yeah, and you're like, okay. And then I'll go to an event. I was at an event last Friday, which was just a room full of women who've started their own businesses, whether it's property, whatever it is. And honestly, like, the first time I met most of these women, and everyone's like, but it's so like good what you're doing. And they just build you up and just make you feel really confident and good in what you're doing and where you've come in essentially a short period of time or a long period of time, depending on where you're at. Yeah. Energy givers and energy suckers are top of mind.
Yeah, and you feel like you're like happy for them. Like you might be doing completely different things, but good for you. And you really root for other people who are. I saw a post the other day and it was saying how entrepreneurship or like investing in property is such a spiritual thing because for you to even open up a company or like have that much faith in yourself to be able to just go and do that, isn't it? So much self-discovery.
Yeah. It's a big step to go and do it and then keep running it. And it can be really lonely. And I think that's why I'm so lucky I've got Alex and you two obviously have each other.
Yeah, it's amazing to me when you get people that have that still like closed mindset of like, even in the property world, you'll get like someone with a really old school mindset of like, well, I want all the properties in the UK to be mine. And that's just like, it's just not a thing where there's, what I've been quite surprised at is how positive other people doing the same thing in very similar areas quite often. There's plenty to go around, like, and everyone helps each other out.
Yeah. There's enough houses for everyone to make a good amount of money in property. And especially a lot of people we've met recently, they're all supportive and they share deals because actually like, they might not be in a position to buy one of the potential HMOs. So they share it on.
Sorry, that's my chihuahua looking after it. She's grunting in the back. Sorry. She's not mine, I'm just looking after her. If you hear grunts, that is what that is. So you focus on Article 4 areas, which, okay, so do you want to explain what Article 4 is for those who are listening and don't know what A4 is?
Yeah, so A4, I think most people think it's like the enemy in the UK. So it's where, you know, local authorities will determine that there's too much of, you know, something, or that it's a directive, you know, under their control. And it doesn't necessarily just apply to HMOs, but in the HMO world, yeah, it's when a council decides for whatever reason, you know, we want to limit or we want to improve the quality of, you know, HMOs.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get concerned by that. A lot of people want to avoid those areas, but there's two sides of the coin, right? There's a lot more regulation. There's a lot more red tape. It means that you can't really produce any more in certain areas, depending on what council and what the rules are. Article 4 is also very different in every single area. I think that's a big thing that people don't necessarily realize at the beginning, is that it's not one size fits all. But when there is an Article 4 direction and there is more red tape or more stringent controls, ultimately what that does is it pushes out the competition, and it means that there's limited supply because you can't create any more, and the demand still goes up. So over the long term, if you can operate in Article 4 areas, then you will have better or less voids, you'll have better demand, and you can also command the premium in that area because of that kind of supply and demand ratio. I hope that was a reasonable summary.
So with your strategy, is it about identifying existing HMOs in the area that could need a lot of TLC and have room to perhaps expand or change the layout, and providing a better product basically in that area?
Yeah, so we bought C3 properties that have been used as student lets and HMOs, and we went through the certificate of lawful use process. We've done that on 2, and then we bought one that was C4 use class, which is HMO use class. We've done both in terms of but they were being used in all intents and purposes as HMOs, and they were all ex-student lets. What we do is we go in, we double the floor space in pretty much all of them. We create more rooms, better accommodation, it was by far a better experience, and we make sure that all of our rooms are double ensuite or studios, just again for longevity and to make sure that people are actually enjoying living where they're living. And that's a big part of what we wanted to do.
Yeah. Ultimately, a big focus for us was also just providing housing that we would want to live in ourselves. And like all our rooms we've designed with something that we would want to live in mind. Like they're all high quality en suites or kitchenettes, as you said. And they're all really beautiful.
Yeah, I think like, especially with HMOs now, like the quality has completely changed, especially if you're doing room lets and like having a communal space that people really can come together as a community is like so needed more now because, well, in all honesty, there's a lot of lacking of community.
Yeah, absolutely. Like properties that we've created, communal spaces are beautiful, aren't they? And, 10 years ago when I was kind of coming out of education, first jobs, like they are such a cool place for people to go and live. Like it's an opportunity to go and meet different people that are working in similar areas, community. Like we've got some friends that are operating down similar areas. They said their whole house has become really good friends off the back of it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I love that. And also the fact that you've also lived in a HMO yourself, you know exactly what you want and how to, like, what you say, like, you can't give your opinion on what you've never, like, experienced yourself, really. So you being already have had that experience of living in a HMO, you know exactly what your ideal tenant needs.
We spoke to tons of people. Like a lot of our friends have lived in shared houses previously, and we've asked them, like, what do you want? Do you expect TVs in your rooms? Do you expect Wi-Fi boosters? Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, pet peeves was a good one, wasn't it? Like, what was the things that you hated about? Like, what were the things that you really annoyed you, and that kind of helped steer us in the right direction.
That needs to be on your Instagram.
Yeah, it's super interesting when you hear, okay, tell us what you absolutely hated about it, and we'll make sure that we don't offer that way.
So with your HMOs, what are your exit plans? Yeah, what are your exit plans that you have? Because it is so important for all those listening or watching.
If you're going to have property, you need to have exit plans in place.
I think ours is hold and continue to hold for a good period of time. If we wanted to, or if we needed to add the cash back to the pot, because you leave money in every BRR HMO project, right? So maybe if we got to the point, we might do one and kind of sell it to an investor, maybe consider other strategies, down the line. But for the minute, it's just buy and hold and continue to do so for, the next good few decades.
And that's why we wanted to make sure that wherever we're building our portfolio has multiple different strategies, whether it's professionals, whether it's students, or whether it's supported housing. Like we've got those 3 routes if for whatever reason we were struggling to let property. But yeah, ultimate goal is to hold.
Is that somewhere where you'd like to go into is supported living? Like, it's always like an end strategy as outside of students or professionals?
I think it's like the hot topic at the moment, isn't it? And we've known people that do incredibly well and in that space and preaching about it and saying like it really is a good place. To be honest with you, I'm probably not knowledgeable enough to know the ins and out of it yet. There's various different types of that model. For the minute, I think maybe stick with the professionals. But once we get that, we want to get really, really good at like one offering. and like make that our specialty. We'll focus on that and not kind of branch out too quickly and too early. Like, we really want to get it locked down, and then when we're in a bit more of a comfortable position, or we know that we can almost do that with our eyes closed, then we want to kind of go and start branching out into other bits and pieces.
Because from a personal perspective, when we started off with HMOs and we did SA and we are simplifying that. It's like sometimes property world can get so complicated, and you have to re-evaluate and go, what is it that I actually want in my life? Why did I started doing this? And for us, it's always been location freedom, to be able to build businesses outside of property that we enjoy. And if you want to be like a full-time developer and you want to be, you want that like high stress, or like for ongoing, then yeah, it's just like redefining like why you got into property in the first place. And service accommodation is quite stressful, high strategy. And if your goal is not to have that sort of quick paced type of investing, then and it doesn't align with where you want to go in the future, or that you say 5-10 years time, then like stick to what you know, niche, like it's like niching down on like being really good at one thing and just like being the best that you can at it.
Yeah, I think that's important for us because we have a very strict 5-year goal. I want to be able to basically offer, the aim of property for us is to offer us freedom, flexibility, to be able to travel. And service accommodation, we just absolutely know straight away, does not offer us freedom and flexibility and the opportunity to travel the way we would want to.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
So yeah. Wow. Yeah, I remember talking to you about it when we met at Sophie's event, and I think you really cemented it for me.
You know your freedom, don't do it. No, people do can, but just
there's a lot more things to consider. Amazing. So you're looking for potential investors now. I love that you've got a learn and earn option. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what that offering is? I mean, it's big.
Yeah, I think
tin, isn't it?
Look, we're not we're not experts by any means. We're kind of continuing to learn and build out our own portfolio. We're beginning to get that repeatable model in motion now. And I think we have kind of done that. We found our niche, right? It's A4 areas, SWE-gen HMOs, like all of our HMOs are SWE-gen in A4 areas. Like that's a pretty old strategy. And we found ways that we can kind of operationalize that. So when it comes to investors, we know that if we're going to scale the way that we want to scale, at some point we need to keep topping up that pot. And we've been working with investors. We've been very lucky and having good conversations and getting a couple of investors on board relatively early doors. And that was a pretty significant set of investments, which meant that we were able to kind of scale out. But we know we need to continue to do that, right? And they get benefits as well. They get, in the cases that we've done so far, has been just fixed interest rates. But there's plenty of opportunities out there that we can't do ourselves, and we need investors to be able to do that. So we offer, high fixed returns. We're more open to have conversations around JVs, although that's obviously a little bit heavier. And then the learn and earns is really for us we have only been able to do what we've done by speaking to people and learning from people and doing that sort of piece ourselves. So we want to be able to start doing that and giving that back. So it's for people who are still want to earn, still want to invest, but a little bit more property orientated rather than completely hands off.
Yeah, amazing. So if anybody wants to find you, where can they reach you?
So best place is probably Instagram, that we've spend a lot of time on these days. And that is @Sam_Alex_property.
Well, I'll be really old school and info@SOProperties.uk.
Yeah, good old email.
We'll put those links down in the show notes below so you can reach out to Sam and Alex directly. And if anybody is looking for community, actually, Ruth and I do have our own Honest Property community group where you can, if you're on your journey and you're feeling like you just need somebody to bounce ideas off of or get secondary opinions on things, then you're more than welcome to join our Honest Community group. It is free.
Yeah, and we'll be doing Honest Community lives every month in the new year. Yeah, to get to know everyone.
Yeah. So
love that. That's great.
Oh, hopefully we'll see you in the new year and you have a fabulous Christmas. Christmas would have already happened for everybody who's listening by the time this is out. But looking forward to a bright 2025 and seeing where you guys go next. So go follow Sam and Alex on Instagram. Yeah, and we'll hopefully see you guys in the new year. Thanks so much.
Thanks, ladies. We'll see you in the new year.
Thanks for having us. It's been great.
Bye.